This portion of Our Times with Bill Moyers is sponsored by General Motors, makers of Chevrolet, Pontiac, Oldsmobile, Buick, Cadillac, and GMC truck. We're living up to our commitment to the General Motors mark of excellence.
You just have to learn to live all over again. You have to learn to live. I'd have to say I've gotten closer to my little girl. I've had a chance to play with her a lot more than I did when I was working, but I guess she'd rather see her daddy working than sitting around the house.
If we're unemployed today, 2 weeks from now, we're broke.
How many of you have parents who work at Goodyear or Republic Steel? How many of you want to work there? What are people stealing?
It's not the major things anymore. They're just taking anything and everything.
Oh, y'all getting a divorce?
No! Got crocked. I mean, bombed.
I got my old trusty American-made buck knife out, and I started slashing a few tires.
What about the quality of the stuff you were turning out?
We was turning out the best you could get out of what mills we had.
What would you like to see Washington do?
Protection, retaliation, reciprocal action. We can't survive 2 or 3 years while the economy readjusts and realigns.
Support your country. Pick up a handful of soil, squeeze it, love it. This is home.
Many people laid off now, and there just aren't jobs in this
last
town.
July.
But after about 15 months,
I got 27 years.
I got 4 weeks left on it. 34 years.
Get a cheap job somewhere.
You have to lower your standard of living to be able to survive. I never thought I'd have to stand a food stamp line either.
And they have not been
But I've
called
done
back
it.
to work.
You are hearing the voices of men out of work in Gadsden, Alabama. But the story they tell is not just of trouble in a southern town. It's the story of a generation laid off in America. Gadsden, Alabama lives on rubber and steel. When they falter, the whole town suffers. Unemployment ripples right through the economy. That's happened in the last 2 years. People like David and Karen Reddish were driven to desperate decisions just to survive. David, a former sawmill worker, couldn't find a job that would support his family. Unable to make ends meet, the Reddishes placed their children in a foster home.
Yeah, it is then.
14 months later, the little girls are coming home.
Oh, Jennifer's just squalling. What's the matter? Gracious, what's the matter? Oh, come on, you're going to stay with Mommy. You're not going to go nowhere. No.
Jennifer is 3.
Stay right here with me.
She has twice been placed in foster care. Her parents have been without steady work almost since her birth.
Come there. Gracious.
Come here, Jennifer.
They are working now for minimum wage, but it's barely enough to keep the family together.
Give me a hug.
David, what was going through your mind the day that you sent them to the home?
I had guilt feelings. I don't know, I even felt like a bum, like I was no good. I was sorry. But deep down, I know I wasn't. It's just hard to describe the feelings I had. I'm not one to cry very much, but that day, I think I was more wet than I was dry.
If you knew at the time what you know now, would you have had these 3 lovely children?
No, I don't think I would have. I hate having to put them through it, but I love them very much.
What was going through your mind the day that you had to send them to the foster home?
I felt so alone and empty because they're my life. They mean everything to me. Huh? Hey. Yeah, you want me to write? Okay. But now I think since we've got them back, I'm going to do everything I can to hold on to them.
There are people in this country who believe that anyone who wants to find a job can find a job.
There's no jobs to be found. And given that, you can't work.
What kind of jobs did you look for?
Anything I could get a hold of, from a restaurant up to a sawmill.
and anything in between that, and a service station even. I couldn't even find a job at one of those, pumping gas.
Are there a lot of families you know going through these kinds of times, having difficulty?
Yes, sir. Plenty of people I know. We have a lot of discussions about it. We have, you know, different ideas and opinions, but basically it boils down to the country is going to the pits. The American dream is just floating right out the window.
What do you mean by the American dream?
The American dream of making it, having your own home. I don't think it's possible right now for kids, I say kids, I'm not a kid, but people our age to own a home right now. I don't think I'll own a home until I'm 40 years old, and I'm just 24.
And you used to take it for granted that you would have a home?
Right. When I was 18, I thought whenever I was my age now that I would own a home, maybe a nice car, because back then there were jobs. You could go out and just find anything. And now you can't even do it.
Did you all have to go on welfare?
Yes, we did.
What did you have to apply for, food stamps?
Food stamps. That's the only thing we can get right now.
How was it to ask for food stamps? Was there a stigma attached to?
Humiliating. When you walk into a grocery store and there's somebody else in front of you in the line, you're seeing paying in cash. Well, here you come paying in food stamps. It's a depressing thing. And you're sitting there, you say, I'll just go put the stuff back and just go home. But you know, you can't because you got to have the food.
Maybe you get called back.
You've got to have the food. So rubber workers who once earned $20,000 to $30,000 a year at the Goodyear plant now come to their union hall to collect free groceries. That helps mightily if you're trying to make it on unemployment checks of $90 a week. It's a struggle often lost, and along with the repossession of houses, cars, and campers comes another kind of foreclosure.
It don't pay to have dreams anymore. Dreams don't work out sometimes.
I'm a third generation of my family that works at Republic Steel. My grandfather was there 46 years. My daddy's there 35. I've got 18.
You have kids?
Yes, I got one 15 and one 13.
You think they'll ever work in the mill?
Well, I hope they don't. They have to go through what we've had to go through.
I've learned something since I've been little. I've learned how to cook. My wife, she went to work, and now I cook.
Well, Susie Homemaker ain't much to talk about, is it?
No, I can make good cornbread, homemade bacon. I tell you what, they've got a hard job.
Women?
Yes, sirree. A housewife has got a hard job.
You've learned that recently?
Yes, I wash the dishes, cook, make the beds.
So maybe your wife is saying this isn't so bad after all?
No, it's been rough.
So rough that some 19,000 families in the county were eligible for butter and cheese shipped to Gadsden by the federal government. Some found it hard to admit the need, but the need won out.
What category are you eligible under, please?
Unemployed.
Okay, how long have you been unemployed?
Close to 6 months.
The high unemployment here, at one time nearly a quarter of the workforce, includes middle-class families who used to think that handouts were for other people. Now they find that a pound of butter and 5 pounds of cheese make a difference when times are tough and resources meager.
You see large Cadillacs and four-wheel drives, and you don't understand why they're getting this cheese. You get talking with them, and they've been laid off for a year, 18 months from Goodyear, Republic Steel, drawing $90 a week, and they can't buy food for their families on $90 a week to keep
In this battle to survive, the food stamp workers are in the front line. But these workers are casualties too. The food stamp office was understaffed. Each worker handled over 150 more clients per month than the state average.
Mrs. Sandridge?
The stress takes its toll.
Hello. Just follow me. Okay, and where are you laid off from?
Our caseload has increased so much, and I have seen what it has done to the co-workers. We lost one of our workers. She had a heart attack. Part of it had to do with the pressures of our work. And then I almost seen it happening again. I saw one of our other workers about to have a nervous breakdown, and it just upset all of us so much.
The morale has gone way down. There was a time when if one worker got behind, everybody pitched in and brought them up current. Now you just have so much to do, and nobody wants to help you. Everybody understands, but nobody has the time.
We take our problems home with us because we deal with people on a one-to-one basis. And when someone tells you their troubles and their problems like that, you can't say, well, next, and go on to something else.
That you're living under a tree at present.
A big oak tree.
Well, thank goodness it has leaves on it this time of the year, huh?
Yeah, right.
Given all the frustrations of working here, why do you stay?
There's a lot of times that I thought I would leave it. I enjoy the work, but I don't like the pressure that it puts on me. And I feel trapped. There's nowhere else to go right now.
There are not any other jobs in the county, are there?
That's right. There's just not any other jobs.
Hard times for a town can mean bad times for law and order. Just ask officers Troy Higdon and Randy Phillips.
Other officers have told us that theft is increasing. What are people stealing?
It's not the major things anymore. They're just taking anything and everything.
Refrigerator and freezers are being hit real hard, especially in schools and churches.
During Thanksgiving and Christmas time, they're asking us to beef up patrols around them because they've had people break in and take the turkeys out of the refrigerator.
You know, no one has any money coming in, so there's a lot of frustration in it. And I think that due to that, we're having more violence, more fights, more shootings.
We don't make sure there's going to be no more confrontations.
The number of domestic calls has gone way up. These calls have become increasingly violent.
Are y'all getting a divorce?
No.
You separating or anything?
I just left Thursday.
Before, you go into a domestic and it was a fist fight, a club. Now you go into domestic and that's the first thing, you know, that we've often come in on shooting victims or knifing victims.
But see, that's what I was doing. I stayed right here. I didn't leave.
Well, wait till tomorrow. How much you had to drink tonight?
I've had 4 or 5 beers a day.
You don't need to be driving.
Well, I think the alcohol consumption is up tremendously. The wrecks involved in alcohol, the DUI, the driving under the influence driver, we've had more of them. I'd say my rate has doubled in the past year and a half from what it was.
I'm gonna fill a thing. I'll blow in it for you, yeah.
Okay. Why don't you blow long and hard in this thing? We're a short-term answer to a long-term problem. The most we can do is stop the violence at that particular time and suggest solutions or a course to find a solution. We have to talk to people all the time. You know, using psychology, just trying to get people to think that there is more than right now. There is a tomorrow.
Dwayne Ellis, rubber worker, husband, father, committed a crime that cost him $2,000 in court fees and fines, but it earned him a nickname.
Why do they call you Slash?
Slash Ellis. I got that name from the guys I work with. It come from a little incident that happened, I guess, that happened about almost 2 months ago now. What got to me is one of my buddies walked up to me with tears in his eye. He said, I've enjoyed working with you. I said, well, what are you talking about? I thought he had a problem, you know. He said, well, I'm going out the gate. He said, I've been laid off. This was his second time. And so, you know, a couple of months or so. And that sort of tore me up, and it stayed on my mind all night long. I mean, this grown man with tears in his eyes. So I went riding around, and I took my anger out on these Japanese imports. I got my old trusty American-made buck knife out, and I just started slashing a few tires.
In broad daylight?
And it was about 10:30 in the morning, 10:30, 12 o'clock. And I guess in about an hour and a half, I had slashed 22 tires on 10 cars. I slashed a tire, I took a piece of paper, I wrote "Buy American" and stuck it on the windshield. I didn't want the individual to think that some hoodlum had just come and slashed the tires out of an act of vandalism. I wanted my point to be made. I wanted to know why those tires had been slashed. People that don't work in the industry, such as I do, they don't think about the Buy American campaign. They don't think what it does. They're putting somebody out of a job.
The signs are everywhere, but the spirit of the Buy American campaign is strongest in the union halls.
Why do you think people are buying foreign cars? I mean, it's obviously they must like what they're getting. They're paying a lot of money for it. What is it?
Ignorance.
Ignorance. Of what? Of what?
Ignorance of how the economy of this country works. What we've come to is we're not just competing with foreign steel mills. We're competing against foreign governments that subsidize their steel mill with millions of dollars, millions and hundreds of millions of dollars that we don't have.
What would you like to see Washington do?
Protection, retaliation, reciprocal action. But we're going to have to return to the point where everybody is made to play by the rules of free world trade. If our alleged trading partners refuse to, we'll have to start exporting some of their own medicine back to them.
We can build anything better than any other country if they update our stuff.
And you're saying it hasn't been updated?
I'm saying it hadn't been updated. We're running over there with mills that was put in there in the 30s and 40s.
What about the quality of the stuff you were turning out?
We was turning out the best you could get out of what mills we had. But the thing I see is here now they're wanting the quality, and they're blaming it on the unions. You can't say the union did it. We don't own the mill.
I'd like to see I'd say the people in the office, the chairman of the boards, all these board of directors, I'd like to see them have to live like we are right now for just a day or maybe a week. And then they'd quit closing down their companies and moving them to Brazil and other foreign countries just where they can get cheaper labor and make more money.
They got to live the way we've lived to understand.
A lot of people say you fellows have to suffer in the short term because the economy of the United States is going through a long-term transformation.
We can afford the luxury of looking at the long-term transformation. People that live from one payday to the next, like we do, suffer in the short term. If we're unemployed today, 2 weeks from now, we're broke. We can't survive 2 or 3 years while the economy readjusts and realign and people sit down and think about our problems for a solution. We've got to do something now.
A computer at the Goodyear plant, an ominous sign for a generation that faces obsolescence and fears it.
We're converting from the old basic type industry to more of a high-tech, higher productivity manufacturing type businesses now.
You mean high-tech is going to be used in the rubber business?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Ed Steffi manages the Goodyear plant.
Will there still be a role for this kind of basically manual, unskilled labor? Yes, there will still be some. There has to be some.
But not as much as in the past?
Not as much as in the past, no. I think the economy is going to pick up, but I don't believe it's going to grow and we will know it to be like it was in the 60s, the early 70s. I don't see it getting back to that level.
It's the prospect of losing the future that haunts workers like these. A permanently shrinking industrial base is a strange and frightening specter. Not even rough pride and native optimism can sustain a people without the skills or training to ride with change. Bad luck they can handle. It's not being needed that confounds.
You're 51-year-old, you're just too old to start over again. And you don't want to do that.
Lord Watkins was laid off by Goodyear 18 months ago, just after he had put down all his savings to buy this farm. He's barely managed to make the payments and to feed his 5 kids with what they could raise on the land.
Yeah, that's all right.
But now Goodyear has called him back. There's just one problem with the new job. It's at a plant 300 miles away.
We'll definitely be missing you guys.
Lloyd is leaving tomorrow. The family will stay here for now.
Nobody wants to leave a family. I mean, that's one thing that if they care anything about their family, they just don't want to leave them. And it tears me up. But I just don't see no other choice. People's got to be working. Money's got to keep turning over for the American dream to be beautiful like it should be. And it's just not happening.
And for the younger generation, right now, they are really faced with something extremely bad. No jobs. Some of them hope to get married. Some of them hope to go to college. And it's just not what they had dreamed it would be.
I'd like to kind of just be able to bring home a little money, just to put food on the table or help my parents out in any way I can. But the way things are going, it's impossible.
It's just real interesting how things can one day be going real well, and the next day just the bottom fall out of it. That's the way it seems to be for our family. I mean, we were all doing real well, and we all had big goals and things like that. And before we knew it, we were all sitting around here playing cards.
The next morning, time for goodbyes.
Dad, if that pig does have problems delivering her babies, what can I do to help her?
Well, you just have to take the situation when it comes. You guys are going to have to take care of Mom. You guys are going to have to help her out. Well, I guess it's about that time, honey. After 28 years, I still call you honey, too. Once a while. Well. Bye. Bye. Bye.
Bye.
Bye, Dad. Bye, Rolly. You guys now be. You help Mom out. I'll grant you I could. I'll grant you I should. Bye.
Can't put you upstairs.
An item in the news since this visit to Gadsden, an item for our times. Quote, leaders of major corporations this weekend said they would rehire few of the workers they laid off during the recession, no matter how strongly the economy recovers. The executives said they see wrenching changes ahead for American workers. End quote. And now here are some scenes from our times on next Tuesday night.
I feel right now that we're sitting there, on paper we say the M1 can do this, on paper we say the cruise missile can do this, and we're holding our cards and we're not showing the cards. We're saying, look what we can do, and we're pulling a giant bluff.
You call them closet patriots.
Yeah, well, they're really not whistleblowers, because whistleblower means that you go public, and they don't go public. But we also think they're patriots.
All right. Any new developments?
The world is crashing around our ears, Mr. Secretary.
We couldn't be in any worse shape right now than if the KGB was running the Pentagon.
What rankles anybody, I suppose, is uninformed criticism.
There are a lot of good, decent,
conscientious people in the Department of Defense. Otherwise, I wouldn't get anything. If everybody was a crook and nobody cared, I'd be out of business.
Those documents are leaked for any one of a number of purposes.